All right, let's move on to the next set of questions, which are all about learning vocab. Andre and Michael, they want to know what is the best way to learn new words? Is it advisable to learn them in phrases?
Okay, so I like thinking of a language. I like thinking that language is not just the sum of some words, but it's like a network of words. So
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, a person who speaks fluently is a person who's able to, as I said, because I like saying that, assemble the pieces together. Now, when we speak, we don't think about when we use a word, we don't think about the next word. When we speak fluently, the next word comes naturally. Okay, so if you think about it, it's not just about the single words. You have to change your perspective. It's not about the single words that you learn. It's about sentences or context. So you have multiple layers. The words are just the consequence. So if you start by focusing too much on learning words, I think that you're missing the general picture. You have to. It's just taking a look at a picture. You see, you have to see the general. You take a look at the frame, and you have to take a look at how the general picture looks instead of looking at the nuts and bolts immediately. It's considering a language like multiple, there are multiple layers. There is a context, there are sentences, and then there are words, that make up the sentences. So my suggestion is the best way to learn, when people ask me about the best way, I think there are multiple techniques, but I would say there are some very important principles. Like, for example, instead of creating lists, there are people who love lists. So if you like that, do that by all means. But I would say that one of the best ways would be to find texts that you like, for example. So remember, instead of deliberately trying to memorize all the words, do the opposite and acquire the ability and the capacity of creating your own material that you're interested in. Let's suppose that you're interested in, say, World War II. Recently, for example, it comes to mind right now, I really like history in general, and I recently saw a documentary about the plague I don't know if you've ever heard of that, the plague that devastated Europe in the
Yeah,
14th
sure.
century. And I got really interested in that. And what I did is I just looked it up on Wikipedia and I downloaded, you have the option that you can create a PDF. So I created a PDF in English as a reference, because you always have to have a reference, a crutch language to help yourself. And then I downloaded it also in Russian and in Chinese, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So since I was so interested in knowing what happened, all the details and not just the history, there were a lot of things. I learned a ton of words about a lot of things just by being interested in that. Because since I wanted to discover what happened, I really wanted to discover, I started, reading it and marking all words, etc., etc. So first of all, create your own language material, possibly bilingual texts that, by comparing how a message is conveyed in two different languages, you not only understand the single words, but you also understand the meaning, the overall meaning, which is pretty important. So this is one very important thing. And then in general, once you've done that, you can also find a way to mark words. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of space-time repetition.
Mm-hmm.
So once you mark the words, you can use, I always say that this is a weapon, a learning weapon. You have a pencil or a pen, and also a highlighter. You can simply mark words that you don't know. Keep reading a text. You just keep reading it, and then at the end of it, you can use. If you have a bilingual text, you don't even use it because you will infer the meaning of words just by looking at the version in English. But if you don't have a version in English, you can always use an online dictionary. So dictionaries are beautiful, but paper dictionaries are history right now because with 5 minutes, if you think about it, if you actually do it, WordPress comes to mind, which is the most famous, but there are tons of other online dictionaries. You can simply type the word, find the meaning. You can even find an example of that word, and you can write it on the piece of paper. So in 5 to 10 minutes, you can actually mark. So you keep reading the text, you mark all the words. At the end of it, you just write on the piece of paper all the meaning of all the words. But now, once you've done that on day X, a beautiful thing that can help you memorize the text is to watch it, to read the text again a few days later, but you don't look at the meaning because you wrote it somewhere else on the page, and you just simply read it again. And you will see that if you choose the right time window, you will remember these words much better. Then there are other steps that you can take. For example, decide to learn to use those words, to record yourself and use those words. Now, I cannot delve into this thing, but I applied certain techniques. So this passage of marking words, you have to explain it in detail. I explained it, for example, in the masterclass in Russian. I'm going to explain it again in the future. But it's also about what you do after, which is a way to use those words and make them important to your brain, because you're telling your brain that piece of information is important. It's all about telling your own brain that the things that you and it are learning is important.